Hey everybody, it's Miss Hunsaker here, and I'm back with another Mathia video. So remember that on our last video, we were in this FWPS linear equations and inequalities. You hit the Let's Go button, you're in here, and we're still in this linear function overview unit. So we're in here, click that button. So you should have already finished the writing sequences of linear functions workspace. All right, if you haven't finished that one, you're not going to be able to move on to this one. So make sure that you have that one finished. If you're getting stuck, make sure you're talking to your teachers. For now, we're going to go in here, understanding linear functions. All right, and it pops up with this. So a couple things to notice about Mathia, if you haven't used this a lot, is we've got two different screens here. So we have the left side of the screen, and we have the right side of the screen. Now, I've noticed a lot of times this left side of the screen might just have like an example or an explanation for you, while the right side of the screen will have the actual problems. Second thing I want you to notice up here is these circles up at the top. So if you remember in my last video, at the very end, I pointed out that up at the top there were like open circles. They look kind of like a loading symbol where it's got like the outline of a circle, but it's not filled in. Here we've got some circles that are filled in, so these are dots. So the difference between the two is when you see a dot like these, it's telling you that it's teaching you something, it's not trying to assess you. So it's not keeping track of things you get wrong. It won't negatively affect your standards if you make mistakes. Whereas in the last video, it was keeping track of what you got wrong, and you could go backwards in your understanding of the standards. All right, so just so you know, when you see these dots, it's okay to kind of play around and make mistakes. All right, so first thing we got to do for this one is we're learning about x-intercepts and y-intercepts of a linear function. So we're going to explore linear functions. We have our y-axis is measured in feet. Ooh, that one. And the x-axis is measured in miles. All right, so we look down here, we've got our graph, we have the y-axis in feet and the x-axis in miles. You should see that. To use the tool, it says enter a linear function such as h of x equals negative 100x plus 25,000 in the box below the graph to set the path for the plane and press enter. All right, so we're gonna have to go scroll down. Here's our graph. And then this is the box it wants it. So it already says h of x, and it was negative 100x plus 25,000. And I have to press enter. There we go. All right. Then we're going to press the play button to watch as the plane flies along the path. So we've got our equation here. We've got a graph up here, and here's our play button. So click that. Oh, look, the plane is flying down. Oh, it's going down. Should notice also that we have numbers going up here. They're counting themselves. And we can watch the plane fly all the way down to the ground. Interesting. Okay. The instructions also say that we can drag the slider to change the input values and move the plane forward or backward. So our slider down here is a little purple box. We can move it back and forth. Notice that the plane goes backwards, it can go forwards, and then also look down here as we move the slider, we are moving and changing these numbers too. So it's telling us what number it is for the miles down here. So it says the plane is at 102 miles. All right, so we've messed around with that. So let's actually look at our questions. So over here on the right side, says enter the function h of x equals negative 100x plus 25,000. Oh, got that one done already. Great. All right, then we said the plane moves to a height of 25,000 feet. So I believe what they mean is when we put the equation in, remember that the plane was up here. That's 25,000 feet. So that one represents, let's see, is it the constant height? Was our plane only there? Is it the y-intercept, the x-intercept, or the distance of the plane from the y-axis? If we look kind of where our plane is right now, it looks like we are on the y-axis, so it can't be that one, can't be an x-intercept, and the plane was never constant. So we know that this 25,000 was our y-intercept of our function. It's where the plane started on the y-axis. All right, now we have pressed the play button, and it looks like we've also messed around with the slider. We can see, and they're asking us about these numbers that are changing here. So your job is to pick, is the number inside of the parenthesis here, that's 64, is it the y, the x-intercept, the y-intercept, or the x? Looks like it is x, which is the distance the plane travels in miles. Oh, great, awesome, getting there. All right, now we have the function. And we're going to move the slider so the plane is at a height of about 14,000 feet. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, I don't have 14,000 feet over here on the y-axis, so how are we going to figure this out? Well, one thing I know is they tell me the top here is 28,000. Okay, and I know that 14 is half of 28, so 14,000 is half of 28,000. So my goal is to take this plane and move it to about halfway on the y-axis. So kind of where that word feet is, I'm going to try to move the slider so the plane is about halfway. What do you think? Somewhere about right there? Does that look like it's about halfway down? Okay. So if we look here, we're going to say the approximate distance traveled. Remember, distance traveled is our x. Right now it's telling us it's 107 miles traveled. So we look here. The best answer out of all of those looks to be about 100 miles. Okay, getting in there. All right, and then we've got this problem here. We're saying to determine the exact distance the plane has traveled. So now we're actually going to plug in this 14,000 feet into our equation. So this is where it gets a little tricky because we're trying to do some solving equations on the computer, and it's a little bit weird. So I'm going to pull up a Scratch notepad, and I'm going to attempt to use my touch screen. So we'll see how this goes. Draw, do this one. All right. So we know we've got this equation. If you remember, it's the y equals negative 100 x plus 25,000. All right, so if I were to try to solve this when it's at a height of 14,000 feet, I know that that 14,000 is my y. So I've really got this equation. Ooh, come on. Okay, 14,000 equals negative 100 x plus the 25,000. Oops, there's a 2 in there. Okay, and this is what you're going to be doing on your scratch paper, right? This is my scratch paper, you've got yours. So I know that if I were to try to solve this, I want to get the x by itself, so I'm going to subtract the 25,000 away from both sides. Okay, and I believe that gives me negative 11,000 equals negative 100x. This is what we practice in class for quite a while now. And I know that to solve for that x, I have to finish by dividing by negative 100. All right, cancel those out. I get x on one side, and this side, I believe I get 110. All right, so there's my problem as we would solve it on paper. Right here, we have to convert it into what they want us to write here. So if we look, we have our equation. My first step was to put 14,000 in for the y. So we look over here at their first box here. They've got an open box for the y. So they're asking us, what did we write there? It was 14,000. Remember, Mathia, in order to submit your answer, you have to press enter. And you'll get a check mark. All right, then this one's a little interesting. Like, what are they asking us to do? So we go back and look at our example. Our next step was we subtracted that 25,000 from both sides. So that's what this problem is asking you to do. It's just set up differently. So remember we started with the 14,000. It just drops down into that box. And then after the minus sign, remember we're subtracting 25,000. So that's going in our two other boxes here. All right, this looks like on our next step, we had canceled out the 25,000, yeah? And we got negative 11,000 equaled negative 100x. So we need to put that negative 11,000 in that box. Press enter. And then we had our final answer was after we divided both sides by negative 100. So that's what happened in this part here. They divided by negative 100 for you, and they're asking for what's your final answer. We got 110. Press enter. Got it. And then the distance the plane has traveled when it lands. Okay, so this is a next set of problems. So what you should notice here is we got 110. So we originally estimated that the plane's approximate distance traveled was 100 miles, and it was halfway down, and the actual answer was 110. All right, moving on. So that second to last question says the distance the plane has traveled when it lands is represented by, is it the constant height, the y-intercept, x-intercept, or distance from the y-axis? So when it lands, remember we were way down here. That looks like our x-intercept. That one. Awesome. And how many miles did it travel when it lands? That's our final number of miles, 250. All right, and you'll notice we got to the bottom, and then you click this button that says I'm done. Woo. It thinks for a little bit, gives you the next problem. All right, and you'll notice we still have the simulator, but you have a different equation that you're going to have to type in here, 25x. Press enter. It's going to get started. All right, I'm going to leave you. You'll notice that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more dots to fill in to make green to get through this. And I'm going to leave you to play around with them. Remember, in these, your mistakes don't count because we have filled in dots. Play around, mess around with the simulator. Ask for hints if you get stuck. And if you're really stuck, make sure to talk to your teacher. All right, I will see you later. Good luck.